Hey there folks, Recon Trooper here, and I'm, after a while of not figuring out what to make for a new video, I finally decided to do a video review on Jedi Fallen Order, as you can see playing in the background as I talk throughout this video. And so I'll just get right into it. So the first thing I'll start with the positives. The first thing is I really like the saber combat. I think that it's actually quite fluent as opposed to other games in the past. Like, I don't know if anybody's played the Jedi Knight games, but it's as cool as they were. The combat is quite basic, and you didn't have that fluent feeling every time especially when you were fighting another saber-wielding opponent. But in this game it seems to be a lot more fluent, and it's a lot better in terms of the animations too. You actually, when Cal deflects a laser shot, he actually reacts, properly. And even when you're, when you're fighting scout troopers or purge troopers, the animations seem like the blocking and the attacking animations, and even when you manage to pull off one of those finishing moves, they all look pretty smooth and well done. And so and then moving on to the saber, it actually looks pretty good. It's got that saber glow that everybody knows so well, but it looks a lot more like as if you were watching Clone Wars, but with a less cartoony look to it, kind of idea, if that makes any sense. Because in the Clone Wars, the film and the series, the lightsaber and lightsaber blades, look quite like the film, but obviously the characters, look more cartoony than in the films. But this kind of feels like almost like a merger of the two, and so yeah, the lightsaber blades look pretty good, and even the lightsaber, itself, being able to customize it pretty well, is pretty good. And perhaps one criticism on that is, especially when you get to have a double-bladed saber, you're kind of, you can't use, how do I say this? You can't have, you don't have two sleeve options like I think you should be allowed to have. Like when you select a sleeve, like you can obviously toggle that Cere's sleeve on and off, but it's not the same as just being allowed to, just being able to customize one sleeve for one half of the saber and then the other one for the other half, and so it's kind of, that's kind of one criticism I do have, because, I'd love to have, a lightsaber, I'd love to make it so you can have two different sleeves. Obviously the middle part can be whatever, can stay a single thing, but I think having two different sleeves would be really good to have. And it would be kind of interesting, have, say, Jero Tarpal's sleeve on the one half, and then have, say, the Magus sleeve on the other half, But it's not a big deal, It's pretty. Otherwise, it's still a pretty cool feature to have these, have such a detailed lightsaber customization, because as you probably well know, in past games that do have lightsaber customization, obviously the only thing you customize is the blade, right? You only choose the color of the blade. And in Force Unleashed, you have 3 different types of blades for each color, minus the black one. You have like the compressed and the unstable, in addition to the regular. But overall, it's just the blade you customize. But in this one, it's much more than that, and so that's it's a pretty, the whole not being able to have 2 sleeves thing is a very minor criticism compared to the rest of the saber that you can customize. So, no major complaint here. And then moving on, I find the enemies are actually pretty decent, they can be quite annoying, I will say, especially those K2 units, when when they grab you all of a sudden, and it's not so bad when there's just one, but sometimes you'll come across 2 at once, and then it's impossible to dodge one and the other at the same time, because, especially when they both try to grab you, and you manage to just dodge one, and the other has got you in its grasp, and then slams you into the ground. But overall, the enemies are okay, and they are, again, some of them are very annoying, but they're still good enemies, wouldn't be a video game if you didn't have annoying enemies. But, and I like the purge troopers. I like fighting the purge troopers, even though I find the electro hammer purge troopers are the ones I can't seem to block very well. I can do the dual baton guy and the staff guys pretty good, but when it comes to the hammers, I suck. Because a lot of the times their attack is unblockable, and so maybe that's part of the reason. And but overall, it's they're a pretty decent enemy. They're kind of take the place of those in Force Unleashed. There's those royal guards that have lightsaber staves, or pikes, I should say, and they're kind of like that. They kind of take that mantle of being the kind of the mini melee bosses, so to speak, or goons, whatever. But I still find them to be pretty. It's satisfying when you actually can fight one of them effectively. Manage to parry and do the finishing move on them effectively. And I like also I find the creatures to be decent enemies too, especially the beasts, like the Otazes and the Ogdos and the Otazes, the Ogdos, the Weeshocks, and the Nidaks. I find them to be pretty decent, pretty decent enemies, and once again, they can be annoying to fight, especially when there's more than one. As you could probably tell in my video here, earlier I got kind of ambushed by a bunch of Weeshocks, and a Sleeg, which kind of doesn't help matters. But overall, I like fighting the beasts, and it's a shame you can only fight the legendary beasts once in the whole story, unless, of course, you're playing on that battle meditation arena thing. And but yeah, I like the beasts, I like the enemies, I like also the planets I like too, obviously the two that nobody heard of before the game, Zepho and Bogano. They're pretty decent planets to explore, as much as you can anyway. And I like how the force powers work for the most part, even though in Force Unleashed you were kind of like a force tank, basically. You didn't have the ability to pull multiple enemies into you at once, like in this game, where you have that power where you just, if you're surrounded by enemies, you can just pull them all into the center, and then if you're lucky, you can kill them all with one hit. And so it's pretty cool. And also the new areas on Kashyyyk, it seems every time they make Kashyyyk in a game, they always add a new section to explore, I think in Knights of the Old Republic 1, you had kind of like a tree village similar to like the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi, and then you go all the way down to the kind of the shadowy forest area on the bottom of the planet. And in this one, it's cool that you start off at sort of like an Imperial refinery, and you work your way all the way to this massive tree, which you can tell in the footage that I'm showing here. Obviously, that's where I'm headed right now. And also the new creatures that they added to Kashyyyk, like again the Weeshock and the Sleegs. I find the Sleegs to be actually a pretty annoying enemy, because they like to do that vomit attack a lot. And especially when there's another creature of some sort that you're fighting, and they kind of come up and help kill you. It's not, it's not exactly a fun time when you're getting ganged up like that. But it's still a pretty decent enemy to fight. And same with the flame beetles, and I'd have to say the flame beetles are probably my favorite in terms of, because they're essentially like fire grenades that you just can throw at enemies. So, they're like grenades you throw at them. So, them I have no problems with. But yeah, I like the Weeshocks though. Again, when they're ganging up on me, not so much. But you know, it'd be kind of cool actually if they ever made another live action movie, or even added to one of the live action TV series, if maybe they actually brought some of these creatures into the live action world. I think it'd be kind of interesting to see, like maybe the Mandalorian having to fight a bunch of Weeshocks on Kashyyyk or something. And moving on to Bogana, I think it's a pretty decent planet. It's got those big kind of carnivorous frogs, those Ogdos, and them actually I don't have as much of a problem with, because you can just, start off by, you just have to cut their tongues off, and then you just have to, dodge all their unblockable attacks. And actually, I don't think there's too many. I think there's only there's not too many of these creatures that manage to, kind of tag team onto you. I think there's the Weeshocks in many areas on Kashyyyk. There's the Ogdos, at least in one spot, and there's I think the Nidax also on Dathomir, also in one spot. But overall, I don't think the Yotazes do that, and but I find the Ogdos are quite the interesting creature to fight. Once again, it's satisfying when you actually fight them effectively, as opposed to just standing there and being fodder for them to, obliterate. But yeah, it's Bogano kind of reminds me of Utapau in terms of all the sinkhole areas that you can explore. I mean, obviously it's not as deep as Utapau, but just kind of similar, I guess. It's kind of a cross between Utapau and Dagobah, because it's also a bit swampy in there on that planet. And and then on Zepho, I find to be the best one, because it's got a lot to explore, between the Imperial dig site in the deep underground to there's the tombs that you can explore, and there's also, of course, there's the ice caves. And let's not forget, of course, the best part, the Venator wreckage. There's lots to do in there too. It's where I fight most of my Yotazes in, because there's one just outside of the crashed engine, or whatever it's called, and then there's one kind of in the middle of the water area, and then there's one sometimes that shows up on actually inside the Venator wreckage itself. So, but and like I said, it would be kind of cool if you could actually fight the legendary versions of these creatures again after you beat the story. It would be a whole lot. I think it would be really fun if you could do that. Fight the Ogdo Bogdo again, and the rabid Yotaz, the albino Weeshock, and the Nidak Alpha. But I guess that's what the whole meditation arena thing is for. And it brings me to the next thing. I find the arena bit is actually pretty solid. I've had some glitches here and there, like sometimes I'll try to throw my lightsaber and it doesn't seem to throw, and sometimes I'll try to do the leaping slash, kind of, like that move where you kind of lunge towards the enemy and then you jump over them while slashing them. Sometimes I try to do that and it doesn't work. I'll just either lunge right to the enemy, or I'll just do the regular lunging slash. But overall, I don't mind the meditation chamber, or the arena, as I should say. And I also like the different backgrounds you can choose in it, and the fact you can, like I said before, the fact you can actually fight the legendary beasts again in there is pretty good, because once you're strong enough in the game, you kind of, who doesn't want to fight the rabid Yotaz or the albino Weeshock again. So, but yeah, and then again, there's the purge troopers. You can fight as many of them as you kind of want to, as much as you're limited to fighting anyway, because obviously there's a limit to how many you can fight at once. And but yeah, overall it's not too bad of a mode. It's kind of a good place if I get just bored of exploring planet after planet repeatedly. I kind of just want to fight enemies for the sake of it. And it's a good place to do that. And I find on Dathomir, actually, now that I forgot all about Dathomir, I find Dathomir to be an interesting planet to explore. I will say that Dathomir probably does have the most annoying enemies, because you have to fight those zombies all over the place, and it's really irritating trying to fight them, and especially when they grab you. They do that unblockable grab attack, and so it's really annoying when that happens. But again, it's satisfying when you actually fight them effectively, when you manage to dodge them or parry them effectively, and then you just finish them off. It's actually satisfying, and the Nidax are pretty good to fight too, when you do it effectively, not fighting them like some amateur. But also they're nice to fight when there's just the one that you can fight, that you have to fight, as opposed to having to fight two of them at the same time sometimes. But yeah, and there's also those little spider things that shoot acid at you that are a bit annoying, but hey, wouldn't be an explorable planet if there were not any enemies of different types to fight, right? So, and then the last thing I'm gonna just touch on before I wrap this review up, I find that it's interesting how they included the Ilum in this game, which, it already, when you visit the planet, you can see it already starting to look like Starkiller Base from The Force Awakens, and so I find that to be pretty interesting when they show that. They actually show that whenever you travel to the planet. You can already see kind of the the big ring around it that goes around it. So I think that's pretty cool. I kind of wish there was a little more to do on Ilum after you're done all your story business in the game, because there's not too many enemies to fight on Ilum after that, and it's, it kind of makes it pointless to go back. And I do mean even after you find all the chests and everything too, it kind of just makes it pointless to go back and explore it, because there's no enemies and to fight there, or hardly any. So, but anyway, to wrap this review up, I think the creatures are good to fight. The Empire is good to fight. The Purge troopers, especially. Some of the enemies again are annoying, especially when they gang up on you and there's more than one. But like there's more than one type of more than one of a single type of enemy. But overall, it's been a pretty good experience I've had with this game, and I intend to keep playing it until, well, I might take breaks, of course, but I intend to play it until Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga releases, whenever, be it in spring of 2022 or, summer of 3022 for that matter. Whenever. But anyway, this is gonna be, I also think that they really need to communicate, I think that's the biggest problem people have had. But anyway, this is Recon Trooper signing out now, and so later.